Hello plant friends, my name is Victoria and you're watching Plantastics. It is Sunday, June 2nd, and it being the end of the month slash beginning of a new month, I fertilize and take care of my plants a little bit differently. So I'm going to be taking you along with me on my Sunday plant chores. First on the list of things to get done is watering this plant wall. Since it is ending a month and beginning a new one, I fertilize with a fertilizer cocktail, if you want to call it, of several different things. That's how everything's able to be so healthy and verdant behind me, because some of these are in soil slash like perlite and whatnot, but some of them are just in straight moss, so they don't exactly have nutrients in their soil, so I have to supplement that with things whenever I'm watering it. I also have several other plants and I'm going to show you what I use for those because it's different things. So let's get to mixing, shall we? Okay, so we are right over my sink right now, and I have this 2.5 gallon pump sprayer, and what I like to do is I like to put my mix in here. This is the largest water reservoir that I have that I can carry pretty well, so I fill this up 3 times and then I dump it into the water reservoir at the bottom. So one of the times I make my fertilizer mix, so I'm going to show you what I use. The first thing is this. Now there are 2 different kinds. There's the monthly and the weekly, and it tells you on the back. See, it says it's the monthly, so I use this at the end slash beginning of each month, so it's just super diluted. So I do 2 teaspoons because it's normally 1 teaspoon per gallon of water, but since I'm putting 6 to 7 to 8 gallons in there, I put a little bit more and it's still super watered down. So I take this, and it's blue. It kind of looks like Blue Frost Gatorade whenever you mix it up before we put the liquid kelp in. So I'm gonna put 2 scoops of that in there. Next, I like to add this. So this is liquid seaweed, and if you have orchids or anything that's epiphytic, a lot of plants get some secondhand hormones from trees as they're growing, like secreted onto the roots of the epiphytic plants, and that's how they know when to bloom and so on and so forth. So if you have an orchid or an anthurium or any epiphyte planted to a piece of cork bark or something like that, yes, they would naturally be on some kind of bark in the wild, but it's normally a living organism and they don't get that. So this is black, and if you've ever really cut your arm or something like that, like it literally smells like iron. So it has it reminds me of the smell of blood. So for this, I use 2 tablespoons per gallon. So I'm gonna double that and use 4. So you're gonna see, you can already kind of see here that this is pretty dark. It's actually like black. And I have a separate set of measuring utensils just for fertilizers. I don't recommend you use the kind you cook with and the kind that you are going to be using for your plants interchangeably. Just get a super cheap pair from a thrift store or the clearance section of one of the big box stores like Home Goods or TJ Maxx. So I have made a mess. I've kind of gotten it everywhere. Okay, so next I mix it, and mixing it's really easy for me because I just add water. Okay, so next I just set it on this stool because I have more control that way, and I just pour it in. So this is kind of just easy. Okay, so I'm going to show you what the goal is. So you can't see the pump because it's kind of hidden. You can see the tag of the pump there. So you can see that barcode. I like to get the water line to that barcode, and then I have an extra one filled up because as it's watering all of these plants, some of the water is lost, and the water level needs to be a certain level basically because the pump needs to be fully submerged. And so that's what I do. So I think I do 3 or 4 of these. I really don't count, if I'm being honest. And so I plug it in, I run it for 30 minutes, and I come back and I turn it off, and then I drain it. So okay, so I'm gonna show you what each pot has. So each little pot, some of them are completely like invisible, if you want to call it that. Some of them are kind of easier to see, but overall each and every pocket has its own little line. And the cool thing is with these, you have the ability, you can see here, there's a plus and a minus. So if there's a plant that needs less water, you can twist it one way and there's less water going to that line, and it's completely customizable. Like, I didn't have all of these pockets filled at first, so there were several pockets that didn't have any water running to them, and as I added more plants, some of them needed more water, some needed less, so I was able to kind of just like play around with that. Now I just added the 4 Miltoniopsis orchids that I have. So there's one, they're all about to bloom, so that's why I brought them in. And then these 2 down here. So that's how I was able to get to those to bloom, is I used that mix that I just showed you because epiphytic plants really like it. So all I have to do is plug in the line. So I just plug it in. I can find the end to the cord, and it turns on. So there is a little bit of a mess sometimes. You can kind of see this one's on too much. Well, it's kind of leveled off now, but I'm still going to turn it a little bit. So the water runs down, and from there it goes into this gutter, and then it just recirculates. But some of the water, like I said, is lost, so you do have to put some. But yeah, so it doesn't really flow from pocket to pocket, and that's why each line needs its own, each pocket needs its own line. So I set a timer on my Fitbit for 30 minutes, and I just let it run. And I go and I do other plant chores. So I'm fixing to do a little look around, make sure nothing's running too much. So it looks like somebody's kind of running a little heavy over in this area. So, but yeah, the best thing that I have in terms of advice is to use the pump sprayer before you turn it on, so that way the water is not like hydrophobic. I have moss on top of some of them, and that helps somewhat. The only pocket that I have problems with is this one, and it would just leak pretty badly, but it doesn't seem like it is right now, and it would leak if it was empty. So if you look from the side, you can see everything's pretty much in a line, so all the excess water just flows down. It flows straight down, and that's the secret. If you have anything that's out of line, it will not flow straight down, and you will have a mess. So I have a picture of the back of it. I put this liner on the back simply to try to hold in moisture because we're running our air conditioner a lot, and in doing that, the wall dries out really quickly. So I only water it once a week. That's the goal. I built this because I'm studying for the bar right now, and I just don't have time to water all these plants. So I fill up the bottom, I turn it on for 30 minutes, and it's like I've watered however many plants are on this wall. So let's make my other mix, and I will show you what I do with that with my other plants. Okay, so now we're going to make the next mix, and these are all things that you can find at your local store. So this is the Performance Organics Bloom Plant Nutrition by Miracle-Gro. It stinks, okay? I'm just warning you. It doesn't smell very pleasant, but you will get some really great results. And then we're gonna use some SuperThrive. And I just put the liquid kelp somewhere, so we're gonna use some of that too as soon as I find it. What I like to do is I like to take a little bit of the water out, and you'll see why. Okay, now that we've mixed it, you're gonna look and see if there's any granules on the bottom. And when you can't see that anymore, that means that you've mixed it really well. And we're gonna add that water back that I took out. So we've got, next I pour it in here. And then I go and spray the top part of the plants, so that way when I water them later, it has a chance to work its way into the soil. Okay, so this is one of my plant corners, just to give you a better idea. So I'm gonna start with these vining ones. Here is my Scindapsus. I also like to go and try to get some of these dying leaves out the way. I'm going to show you, I think I've moved everything just about to clear pots. So I'm just showing you how many roots there are here, if you can even see. But yeah, try to get so this one here is my Splendid, and you can see that it's doing incredibly well, especially if we take it up here. Like I said, it's doing pretty well. So I go around the entire bottom here, and then later I'm going to refill all these bottles because they're empty. Next is this here Brassel, and you can see it's really happy here. So next is this bad boy. It was actually a pot in a pot. ZZ isn't gonna get any because if you look in here, he was outside and he's got osmocote, so we're not gonna double dose him. Are, however, going to give this beautiful looking glass begonia some fertilizer. And I'm not gonna film all these, but you can see that there's a lot of plants. The reason you want to try to avoid getting it on the leaves is because it leaves water marks. Now we're in my office, and you can see this Stramanthe is well, it really needs to be repotted. I unfortunately don't have time for that. And this monster right here is my Tanderusa. So we're definitely going to give it some serious watering and fertilizer. You can see, maybe you can't see. I don't think you actually can. Let's see if you can now. So there is a new leaf forming here. So many leaves in the way. But yeah, you can see that's a new leaf forming there. So that'll be nice. I've never actually seen this Stramanthe Trio Star bloom. I don't know if you have or what they even look like, but most of my Calatheas in my collection have bloomed at least once by now. But that one has not. Okay, so I've got some propagations here. So for terrariums and stuff, I do, once I see roots on propagations, they do get some of this. It just makes them grow a little faster. So they don't get a lot because they just don't need that much. Here is my Polynera. And let's see what else we got here. I'm gonna bring down these two Venosas so you can see them. Now everything looks pretty crowded, but it's not going to stay that way. This violet is against everything I typically do. I purchased it at Lowe's. It's still in the original soil. I don't recommend that. However, I just don't have time to do otherwise right now. So that's the state of the nation. I just don't have time for that. So these get more water, but not fresh water. And here's my Hoya back here that you probably can't see, but it gets some. So let's turn these around so you can see how pretty their roots are. So this is not just water, but a drop or two of the Schultz, and then I may or may not have sprayed this in there as well. I can't remember. I don't do it every week. I don't even have a recommendation for how much you should use. Whatever I do works. So just use something once you see roots. Do not ever put fertilizer in there when you put a fresh cutting. So just gonna give some of that. And the algae does not hurt the plants. And you can see that honestly today I'm gonna try to fit in the time to repot these and give them fresh new homes. But this is really cool because it's a fuzzy one. It's less fuzzy than a tomentosa, but it's still pretty cool. And it's very common for me to get propagations to bloom, because if you think about it, they're not just getting water, they're also getting nutrition, and a lot of plants bloom when they have everything they need. Now we are close to the vivarium. I'm cleaning this today. I'm not using any fertilizer there. However, this plant in the corner, it's going to get some fertilizer. However, I cannot film that and be in the corner at the same time. So you're just going to have to take my word for it. Okay, so these are the piece that goes into the terracotta spike, the plant nanny, and they are all empty. So I like to use these for larger plants that require a lot of water, or vining plants like the Splendid that are just so large or so beautiful or so delicate that I don't want to bother trying to pick them up and move them to water them. So I'm going to be filling all of these up and putting them back into the terracotta spikes. So now I've got all 4 of them filled, and I'm going to put them back in the pots from where they came. Okay, so you can see that's where it fits in, if it'll focus, which I don't think it is. But yeah, you just drop it in. That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do for each and every one. And yeah, it works out really well. Okay, so it has been 30 minutes. So we are going to turn this off. So we're just gonna look around, make sure there's no real leaking going on. Doesn't look like there is, so we're happy about that. Okay, so you see everything's dripping. So what I like to do is I like to wait, and then I like to get all this water out so that way it is empty. But if I do that now, the water will just kind of fill in later. So I like to wait. Okay, so the next thing I do is I take this, which is a really small pump, and I crack the window and I let it run until this is empty. So I'm gonna show you what that's like. And it suction cups to the bottom. And now we're going to open the window and let it all drain out the window. So I like to go outside and get it a little bit further away from the house. Okay, so now we are going to plug it in. Okay, so we have watered everything, drained it out. What I do next is I take this over to the sink and I just scrub it out, and then from there I use paper towels or dry cloths and basically get out all the gunk, and that's what I do. I'll also wipe in here, and that's how I keep everything clean, because even if there's just a little bit of water in the very bottom, it will start to stink. So this is how everything looks. Zoom out. And yeah, please subscribe and like this video, and I'll be seeing you next time. Goodbye.